The wedding test, when the groom arrived in rags and an old car. A story about love, pride, and what truly matters, the missing groom. Emily had always believed she knew exactly what she wanted. Ever since she was a teenager growing up in the suburbs of Portland, she had envisioned her wedding day with meticulous clarity. The aisle would be lined with ivory roses, a quartet playing a soft classical tune in the background. Her dress would be timeless, elegant, with just enough lace to hint at tradition, but not so much that it overwhelmed her figure. Her husband? Well-spoken, confident, successful. The kind of man who knew the difference between a Cabernet and a Merlot, who tipped generously and who made her laugh without ever raising his voice. And she thought she had found all of that in Daniel Miller. When she met Daniel, he checked every box. From the moment he walked into that rooftop networking mixer, suited, confident, and full of effortless charm, she felt her carefully crafted world clicking into place. He worked in finance, or so he said, drove a sleek black BMW, wore cufflinks that gleamed in the sun, and always seemed to know where the best table was at any restaurant. They met again at another event 2 weeks later. This time, Daniel bought her a glass of Sauvignon Blanc before she even asked for it. He remembered. He always remembered. The small details, the ones that mattered, her favorite flower, the brand of almond butter she liked, the fact that she preferred rainy days to sunshine. By the third date, she was hooked. By the sixth, she was falling in love. They dated for just under a year before he proposed, at a secluded beach, candles buried in the sand, string lights overhead, a diamond ring that glittered like ice. She said yes through tears, convinced the universe had finally rewarded her patience. The planning began almost instantly. It was going to be a wedding to remember. A picturesque ceremony at a courthouse-turned-wedding venue nestled near Lake Michigan. Guests flying in from 4 different states. A fusion of elegance and modern charm, with a jazz trio for ambiance and a 12-layer cake adorned with real pearls of sugar. Emily's mother, a retired teacher, cried when she saw the invitation proofs. Her father, a quiet man who barely spoke at family dinners, gave her a rare smile of approval. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. The morning of the wedding started like a dream. Hair, makeup, laughter, the bridesmaids clinking glasses of mimosa and fixing each other's curls. Sasha, Emily's childhood best friend and maid of honor, kept the atmosphere light, constantly cracking jokes about how Emily should practice walking in heels one last time. "Don't trip down the courthouse steps," she teased. "I won't," Emily replied, laughing. "I'm marrying Daniel Miller. He's probably already there, checking his tie in the mirror." But Daniel wasn't there. The ceremony was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. By 1:15, the whispers had started. The officiant checked his watch twice. The wedding coordinator stepped outside and paced the parking lot. Emily's father stared at his phone as if willing it to ring. Guests began arriving in their formal wear, smiling, asking for photos, not knowing the bride was standing alone in the back room, her heart starting to thump in a rhythm she didn't recognize. By 1:50, the laughter had faded. Her bridesmaids stopped making jokes. Emily sat in the dressing room, motionless, her veil slipping off one shoulder. "Do you want me to call him?" Sasha asked gently. "No," Emily whispered. "He'll be here." But even she didn't sound convinced anymore. And then it happened. At 2:03, just 3 minutes after the official ceremony start time, the sound of squeaking tires echoed through the courtyard. Everyone turned. A beat-up silver Toyota Corolla, paint chipped along the side, tires coated in dust, slowly rolled into the lot. It looked absurd parked next to the rows of luxury cars, Mercedes, Audis, even a vintage Jaguar that belonged to Daniel's best friend Connor. The car door creaked open. Out stepped Daniel. But not the Daniel everyone knew. No tailored suit, no polished shoes, no groom's boutonniere. Instead, he wore an off-white linen shirt, slightly wrinkled, with the sleeves rolled up past his elbows. Simple black pants that didn't quite fit. His hair, usually styled with precise gel, looked tousled as if he'd just rolled out of bed. In his hand, he held a small bouquet, not of roses or peonies or even gardenias, but of wildflowers. Mismatched, fragile, hand-picked. A collective gasp passed through the guests. Emily, standing behind the curtained archway, saw him and froze. Sasha stood beside her, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is this a prank?" Emily stepped forward slowly, her dress trailing behind her like a whisper of silk. "Daniel," her voice cracked. "Where's your tuxedo? What is this?" He looked at her, not with embarrassment but with a strange peace. "This is me," he said. "I don't understand." "I couldn't do it," he said softly. "I couldn't marry you under false pretenses. I couldn't keep pretending." There was a pause. Even the wind seemed to stop. "Pretending what?" Daniel took a breath. "I'm not who you think I am. The car, rented, the apartment, a friend's, the job in finance. I freelance, odd jobs mostly. I've been driving Uber the last 6 months. Everything I told you, everything I showed you, it was all a carefully crafted version of who I thought you wanted." Emily blinked. "No, you... What about the restaurant in Napa?" "Charged it. The watch you gave me for our anniversary, sold my gaming console." The silence was unbearable. Her parents were watching from a distance. The guests were frozen, unsure whether to leave or stay. "I fell in love with you," he said, taking a step closer. "Truly. But I was terrified you wouldn't fall in love with the real me, so I faked it, for months. But today, I couldn't walk into a lifetime of lies. If we're going to get married, I need you to love me, not my resume." Emily took a step back. "Do you think this is noble? That this is some grand romantic gesture?" "No," he replied honestly. "It's selfish, but it's the truth." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into the waiting crowd. Her father followed. Her mother said nothing. The bridesmaids remained rooted to the spot. Daniel stood alone. And for the first time in a long time, he felt free. But also completely shattered. Because the woman he loved had walked away. And he had no idea if she'd ever come back. Later that night, after all the guests had left and the venue was being cleaned, Daniel sat alone on the courthouse steps, still holding the wildflowers. His parents came and tried to take him home. He refused. "I had to do it," he whispered to no one. "I had to know if she'd still choose me, when I wasn't perfect." He didn't know that Emily, miles away in her childhood bedroom, was asking herself the same question. Would she have chosen him if he had simply told her the truth from the start? The answer wasn't clear. Not yet. But it would come. And with it, a storm neither of them was prepared for. Because truth, once revealed, has a way of unraveling every lie it touches. And this was only the beginning. The fallout. 3 days had passed since the wedding that never happened. 3 painfully silent, soul-crushing days. Emily had not returned a single message. Not to Daniel, not to Sasha. Not even to her parents, who were still reeling from the shock. Her phone remained on, but every call went unanswered. Her social media? Dead silent. No posts, no stories. Not even a passive-aggressive quote about heartbreak. She was gone. Physically present in her parents' home, but emotionally? Somewhere deep in a fog. And Daniel was unraveling. He hadn't slept much. He hadn't eaten either. His apartment felt too empty, too quiet. The wildflowers he'd brought to the wedding were now withered in a glass next to the sink, their petals curling inward like secrets too ashamed to bloom. He knew the fallout was coming. He just didn't know how wide the damage would spread. At 9:17 a.m. on a Thursday morning, it started with a knock on his door. Not the postman, not a friend. It was Richard Sullivan, Emily's father. Daniel opened the door to a man he barely recognized. Richard, usually buttoned up and neatly shaven, stood disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. He didn't wait for an invitation inside. He walked past Daniel and into the living room. "You made my daughter cry on her wedding day," he said without raising his voice. "That's something you don't ever come back from." Daniel stood still, silent. He didn't offer an excuse. Richard turned to him. "Do you even understand what you did? You humiliated her, in front of everyone. She trusted you. We trusted you." "I know," Daniel said quietly. "But would it have been better to marry her under a lie?" "That wasn't your choice to make," Richard snapped. "You don't test someone's love by ambushing them at the altar. This wasn't an experiment, it was a wedding." Daniel looked down. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "You thought wrong." The room went still. Outside, the city moved as it always did. Cars rushing, people talking, time passing. But inside that small apartment, 2 men stood suspended in disappointment. Before leaving, Richard paused at the door. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She cries in her sleep. Do you know what that does to a father?" Daniel didn't answer. "I don't care what your reasons were," Richard said, "but you better stay far away from her, or I'll make sure you do." And just like that, the The door slammed shut. Daniel collapsed on the couch, his hands trembling. He had tried to do the right thing, but maybe he'd only made everything worse. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Emily lay curled up on her old twin bed, wrapped in the same blanket she'd used in high school. Her prom photos still hung on the wall. Her books, untouched since college, sat neatly on shelves. It was as if she had traveled back in time, only the girl in the mirror wasn't 17 anymore. She was a bride with no husband, a woman whose fairy tale had turned into a cautionary tale. Vanessa, her mother, knocked softly on the door and let herself in. "Emily, honey, please eat something." Emily didn't respond. Vanessa sat at the edge of the bed and placed a bowl of chicken soup on the nightstand. "You need strength. You're not a ghost." Emily finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "He lied to me." "I know. For a whole year, Mom. Every dinner, every kiss, every time he said he had a meeting or a client or a deadline, he was lying. I know. And the worst part? I still miss him." Vanessa didn't say anything. She just reached out and stroked her daughter's hair. "Mama," Emily whispered, "was it all fake? Did he love me? Or did he just love the idea of me?" Vanessa took a deep breath. "Maybe both. Maybe he loved you so much, he didn't believe he was enough. And that's a dangerous kind of love." Emily turned toward her. "Would you forgive Dad if he lied to you about everything?" Vanessa looked away. Your father once lost our entire savings in a failed business. He didn't tell me until a debt collector showed up at our house. I didn't speak to him for 2 weeks, but we rebuilt, slowly, together." Emily blinked. "So you're saying I should forgive Daniel?" "I'm saying only you know what your heart can carry." For the first time in days, Emily sat up. "Do you think he did it to test me?" Vanessa hesitated. "I think he was scared. And sometimes, scared people do stupid things." Silence fell over the room again, but this time, it wasn't so heavy. Downstairs, the front door opened. Richard had returned. His voice floated up the stairs. "She's not to see him again." Emily's eyes widened. She stood, her blanket falling to the floor. "Mom," Vanessa stood too. "Don't worry, this is your life, not his." That night, while everyone was asleep, Emily crept downstairs and pulled out a dusty box from the hall closet. Inside were old letters, pictures, and a journal. She flipped it open to a page from 3 months earlier. It read, "I don't know if Daniel is perfect, but I feel safe with him. Like no matter how stormy the world gets, I'd find shelter in his arms. God, I hope he's real." She stared at the words, her own handwriting, and for the first time she allowed herself to cry, not from betrayal, but from mourning the future she thought she had. But across town, Daniel wasn't sleeping either. He had just received a message from someone unexpected, Sasha. "I don't know what possessed you to do what you did, but I need answers. Come to the pier tomorrow at 10 a.m. He didn't know why she wanted to see him, but something told him this wasn't just about Emily, and he was right. The next morning, as fog hung low over the water, Daniel arrived at the pier. Sasha was already there, arms crossed, her coat pulled tight against the wind. "You look terrible," she said bluntly. "Thanks. You deserve it." Daniel said nothing. "I'm going to say this once," Sasha continued. "Emily might never forgive you, and that's fair. But I need to know, did you love her?" "Yes," Daniel replied without hesitation. "From the first day." Sasha studied him. "You've known me almost as long as you've known her. Why didn't you just tell her the truth earlier?" "Because I didn't think I deserved her. That's not your choice to make." "I know that now." Sasha looked away. "You know what hurts the most? It's not that you're poor, it's that you lied. You crafted an entire persona. That's manipulation, Daniel, not insecurity." "I know," he whispered. Sasha softened just slightly. "There's someone else you need to talk to." Daniel frowned. "Who?" Sasha handed him a slip of paper, a name, a phone number, and a note. "Ask about the real reason Emily didn't run after you." Daniel looked up, confused. "What are you not telling me?" Sasha just turned and walked away. "You'll find out soon enough." And so, for the first time since the wedding, Daniel felt something new. Hope. It was fragile, but it was enough. Enough to make the call, enough to uncover the truth. And as he dialed the number, unaware of who was on the other end, he had no idea that the next conversation would upend everything he thought he knew, not just about Emily, but about himself, because the fallout had only just begun. The secret conversation. Daniel stood frozen, the phone pressed to his ear, listening to it ring on the other end. Once, twice, 3 times. He almost hung up until he heard a voice, a calm female voice, older, steady, familiar. "This is Evelyn." Daniel blinked. "Emily's aunt?" "Yes." There was a pause. "Why are you calling?" "I was given your number by Sasha. She said you could tell me the real reason Emily didn't come after me." Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Then she exhaled slowly. "I was wondering when you'd find your way to me." "What does that mean?" "Come by the house tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp. And Daniel..." "Yes?" "Bring your guilt. You're going to need it." Click. The line went dead. Daniel stared at his phone, heart pounding. What was she talking about? Why would Sasha, Emily's closest friend, send him to Evelyn? He didn't sleep much that night. His mind was racing with 1,000 possibilities. Was there a secret Emily had kept from him? Had she known something all along? Was he the one who misunderstood everything? The next morning, Daniel stood outside Evelyn's modest 2-story home, the same house where Emily had spent summers as a teenager, where her mother had grown up, where old family secrets were whispered in the kitchen but never spoken aloud. Evelyn opened the door, wearing a cardigan and holding a cup of coffee. "Come in." Daniel stepped inside. The house smelled of cinnamon and books. It was warm, lived in, safe. Evelyn motioned for him to sit. "I'm not going to waste time," she said. "I want to tell you a story. Then you can decide what to do with it." Daniel nodded. "I'm listening." Evelyn took a deep breath. Emily was 13 when her uncle, my younger brother, died in a car accident. He had just proposed to a woman named Karen. They were madly in love. But Karen's family thought he wasn't good enough. He didn't have a college degree, he was a mechanic. They pressured her, told her to break it off. And she did, 2 weeks before the wedding. Daniel leaned forward. He drove his car into a tree that same night. Whether it was on purpose or not, no one ever knew. Evelyn's voice cracked, but she kept going. "Emily saw what it did to our family, to my mother, to me. That kind of heartbreak, it hardens people. So I always warned Emily, if someone loves you, love them for who they are, not what they have." She paused, looking at Daniel. "Which is why what you did at the wedding confused me." Daniel looked down. "I thought I was testing her heart." "No," Evelyn said sharply. "You were testing her pride, and you lost." Silence. Then she added, "But she lost too. More than you know." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Evelyn stood, walked over to a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. She handed it to Daniel. Inside was a letter, handwritten, neat. "To Daniel, in case you ever care to know the truth." Daniel began reading. "I never cared that you were rich. I cared that you lied. You made me believe I could trust you, depend on you. But what hurts most isn't the money, the car, the suit. It's that you didn't think I was strong enough to love you as you are. That's what broke me." Daniel swallowed hard. Evelyn's voice softened. "She wrote that the night after the wedding. She left it here. Never meant to send it. But maybe now you needed to read it." Daniel stood up. "Does she know you're telling me this?" "No, and she wouldn't want me to. But I believe in second chances, even if they're messy." Daniel looked at the letter one more time. "I don't know if she'll ever forgive me." "That's not the point," Evelyn replied. "The point is, do you deserve her forgiveness?" Daniel's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know, but I want to." "Then show her who you really are, not with words, with action." Daniel nodded slowly, and just like that, he walked out the door, carrying not just guilt, but the fragile hope of redemption. At the same time, Emily sat on the balcony of her childhood home, watching the sunrise. She had read her own letter a dozen times in her mind. She knew the words by heart. She hated herself for missing him, hated that part of her still longed to understand why he hadn't told her sooner, why he thought she couldn't handle the truth. She sipped her coffee, and that's when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Emily, it's Daniel. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I have one question. Just one. Can I meet you at the bookstore? The one we always went to. Noon. You don't have to reply. If you don't come, I'll leave. Forever, I swear. Emily stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the delete button, but she didn't press it. Instead, she set her phone down and began to get dressed. By noon, the bookstore was quiet. It always was on Sundays. Daniel stood near the back, next to the poetry section, where they first held hands almost a year ago. Emily walked in. She didn't speak, just looked at him. Daniel didn't rush, didn't smile. He just breathed. "Thank you for coming," he said. She crossed her arms. "Say what you came to say." Daniel nodded. "I lied to you. Not to hurt you, but because I was afraid. I didn't grow up with money. I worked 3 jobs to finish college. I saved every cent. And when I met you, you made me feel like I could finally breathe. But the more I fell for you, the more I felt I didn't deserve you." He took out the envelope. "This is your letter. Your aunt gave it to me. I had no right to read it, but I'm glad I did." Emily's face changed, slightly. Her eyes softened, but her jaw stayed tight. Daniel continued. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect another chance. I just want you to know, I would rather sweep floors by your side than drive a Porsche alone." A long silence. Then Emily spoke. "You don't get to say something poetic and fix everything. I know. You humiliated me. I know. My father can't look me in the eye. My mother cries when she thinks I don't hear her." Daniel blinked away tears. "I know," Emily exhaled. "But I also know I wasn't perfect either. I cared about the fairy tale more than the reality." Daniel looked up. "I wish I had told you everything. The first week. Maybe even the first day. I wish you had too." They stood like that, 2 people with too much history and too many wounds. Finally, Emily stepped forward. "I'm not ready to forgive you." Daniel nodded. "But I don't want you to disappear either." He looked up, surprised. "I still don't trust you," she added quickly. "But part of me wants to, and that part's louder than it used to be." He smiled softly. "I'll take that." She held out her hand. "Coffee?" He took it. "Coffee." Later that evening, Sasha called Emily. "How did it go?" Emily paused. "We talked." "That's it? No yelling, no crying, just words." Sasha smiled on the other end of the line. "That's how most healing begins." Emily looked out the window, the city lights twinkling below. "I'm scared." "Good," Sasha replied. "Fear means you care," Emily whispered, almost to herself. "I think I still love him." Sasha didn't reply right away. Then she said, "Then maybe this time, don't run." But as Emily took a step toward healing, something else stirred in the shadows. A conversation she wasn't meant to overhear, a name she didn't expect to hear again, and a secret that would threaten to shatter everything, again. Because someone had been pulling the strings all along, and the truth was only half out. The puppet master. The bookstore conversation should have brought peace, but in reality, it only opened a new door, a darker one, because the truth has a way of leaving footprints. And someone had been following them all along. That someone was Veronica, Emily's mother. It started innocently enough. A cup of chamomile tea, a passing question, a raised eyebrow. "You saw him again?" Emily nodded. "Yes, we talked." Veronica stirred her tea. "Did he apologize?" "Yes." "Did you forgive him?" "No, not yet." Veronica paused, then said, almost too casually, "Do you know why your father had a panic attack the morning of your wedding?" Emily frowned. "Panic attack?" Veronica smiled bitterly. "You were too busy getting your nails done to notice. He was hyperventilating in the car. He saw Daniel pull up in that wreck of a car, in that hideous suit. He thought we were being conned." Emily said nothing. "I was the one who got him to calm down. I told him it was a joke, a prank, because even I didn't think Daniel would be foolish enough to humiliate you like that on purpose." Now Emily's eyes narrowed. "And yet, you were the first to walk away. You didn't even wait for me. You left before I did." Veronica set her teacup down with a small clink. "Because I knew what that meant. You were choosing shame over pride. That's never worked for women like us." "Women like us?" "Yes, women who have to survive." Emily stood. Did you talk to Daniel or his family? No. You're lying. Veronica's expression shifted. Calm to cold. You think I would interfere with your life? I think you interfered with mine the moment you decided who I should marry. Veronica's jaw clenched. You were a mess after college. Floating. No job, no ambition. When Daniel came around, you lit up. For once you had a direction. He was successful, educated, stable, perfect. Emily's voice rose. So you didn't care why I loved him, just that I could be something because of him. No, I cared that you wouldn't be nothing. That line hung in the air like smoke from a fire that never stopped burning. Emily turned away, but her mind was already spinning. Why had her mother sounded so rehearsed? Too careful. Too practiced. Across the city, Daniel sat with his grandmother, Eleanor. He held a cup of tea but hadn't taken a sip. Emily met with me. Eleanor smiled. Did she scream? No, she listened. Then you've won half the war. Daniel shook his head. It doesn't feel like winning. Silence. Then he added, there's something off about all this, about the day of the wedding, something I can't shake. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Like what? The timing, the way her friends looked at me, the fact that someone filmed it and it went viral in hours. You think someone planned it? Daniel's hands tightened around the cup. I think someone wanted it to fail, badly. Eleanor stood and walked to the old bookshelf near the window. She pulled out a small black notebook. She placed it in front of him. What's this? Information. Notes I took. Calls I overheard. Names. Times. Daniel flipped it open. What were you doing? Watching, like any good grandmother does. One line caught Daniel's eye. April 9th, Veronica seen at cafe with Richard Cavan. His heart stopped. Richard Cavan, as in the city attorney? Eleanor nodded. He's close with Emily's mother, too close. And do you remember the man who gave that speech at the rehearsal dinner? The one who said, marriage is a contract. Daniel's jaw clenched. Yeah. He was talking more to her parents than us. Eleanor leaned in. My sweet boy, I don't think your wedding was ruined because of a test. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe someone made sure that test went wrong. The next day, Emily opened her laptop. She scrolled through the wedding footage, again, for the 100th time. But this time she paused on a specific frame. A woman in the background, holding her phone, smiling. Her mother. Just moments before Daniel walked up the stairs with the bouquet. Emily zoomed in. There it was. A smirk, like she already knew what was about to happen. Emily's stomach turned. She picked up her phone and dialed Sasha. Hey, Sasha answered. You okay? Can we meet? Of course. They met in a quiet cafe just like old times. Emily leaned forward. Did you give Daniel Evelyn's number? Sasha blinked. Yes. You told me to stay out of it, but I couldn't. He needed to know the truth. Emily nodded. Did my mom know you did that? I don't think so. Why? I think she sabotaged my wedding. Sasha nearly dropped her coffee. What? Emily told her everything. The footage, the timeline, the connection to the city attorney. Sasha sat back in silence. Then she whispered, Do you want to find out the truth? Emily nodded slowly. Then let's get proof. That night, Emily went through the boxes in the garage, old receipts, letters, photos, until she found what she was looking for, a manila folder labeled Prenup Drafts. Inside were multiple versions of a prenuptial agreement, all with her name typed under the signature line. She had never seen any of them before. And at the bottom of the final page was her mother's handwriting. Emily's hands shook. She called Daniel. I need you to come over, now. Daniel arrived within 15 minutes. Emily handed him the folder. He scanned it. This isn't legal. I never signed anything, but she was preparing it, planning it. Do you think she was trying to protect you? Emily's eyes burned. No, she was trying to control me. Daniel looked at her. What do we do? Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. We find out what else she's hiding. The next morning, Sasha called. I have a friend, in IT. He can help us pull metadata from the video, maybe see who uploaded it. By noon, they had a name, an anonymous account, registered to a business email. Veronica Lang. Media@gmail.com. Emily stared at the screen. There it was, the smoking gun. "Why?" she whispered. Daniel stood beside her. "Because some people would rather control a story than face the truth." Emily looked up at him. "And I don't want to be that kind of person." Daniel took her hand. "Then let's take your story back." But taking back the story wasn't going to be easy, because Veronica wasn't done, and neither was Richard Cavan. In fact, they were about to make a move that would shake everything. Again, a press release, a public statement, a new headline, and this time it would put Daniel's family in the spotlight, because when pride is wounded, it doesn't retreat, it attacks. And Emily was about to learn that her mother's war was just beginning. The war of words. There's a strange calm before every storm, and sometimes it comes in the form of a perfectly pressed suit, a strategic press conference, and a smiling enemy. That's exactly how it began. Veronica Lang appeared on a local morning show, sitting gracefully under the studio lights, wearing a pearl-white blazer and just enough makeup to appear regretfully dignified. The host leaned in, her voice gentle but intrigued. "Mrs. Lang, we've heard so much recently about the canceled wedding between your daughter and Mr. Daniel Preston. There's been a lot of public speculation." Veronica offered a soft, practiced smile. "Yes, and I believe it's time to clarify things. Not to attack, but to defend the dignity of my family." The host gave an understanding nod. Veronica continued. "My daughter was deceived, plain and simple. The man she was about to marry, Mr. Preston, hid critical parts of his life from her. Financial instability, family secrets, and most hurtfully, a tendency to manipulate." Emily and Daniel were watching the broadcast from her laptop, stunned. Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's not just throwing dirt, she's crafting a narrative." Emily leaned forward, her eyes glued to the screen. "But it gets worse," Veronica said, her voice now tinged with emotion. "After the wedding, my daughter tried to recover privately, but the Preston family sent people to harass her. They pressured her to keep quiet, even used elderly relatives to guilt-trip her into silence." Daniel stood up, his fists clenched. "She's talking about my grandmother." "Sit down," Emily said, her voice sharp. "We need to think." Veronica wasn't done. She held up a copy of what appeared to be a printed email. "I also want to share this. A message sent to a mutual acquaintance, trying to bribe someone to stay quiet about what really happened before the wedding." The screen blurred the email's contents, but not the subject line. Let's keep this between us." Emily froze. "That's not from you, is it?" Daniel looked at her. "No, but it's from someone in my father's office." A new name entered the war. Brandon Preston, Daniel's father. That same afternoon, tabloids exploded. Bride's family breaks silence. We were deceived. Elite family drama. Preston empire under fire. New emails leak in failed wedding scandal. Emily's phone buzzed non-stop. Calls, messages, death threats, sympathy letters, and then silence. Daniel's company revoked his promotion offer. His mother, already overwhelmed, suffered a panic attack. The media storm Veronica had summoned was now a full-blown hurricane. And in the eye of it all, Emily was sinking. Her name trended online, but not for her art, not for her design work, not for her dreams, for being the girl who played two men and burned a rich family. She barely left her apartment, until Sasha barged in with 3 coffees and a tablet in hand. "Okay, you're going to get up, drink this, and help me fix this mess." Emily blinked. "How?" Sasha grinned. "By playing their game, only smarter." Step 1. Control the narrative. Sasha helped Emily write a heartfelt open letter. It wasn't a PR stunt. It wasn't a polished press release. It was raw, real, and painful. The letter began, "My name is Emily Lang, and I never thought I'd have to explain my heartbreak to strangers." She spoke about her dreams, her doubts, her family pressure, about how she loved a man, but didn't know who to trust anymore. She admitted her faults, she shared her hopes, but most importantly, she told the truth, the full truth, including what Daniel's grandmother had uncovered. Within hours, the letter went viral, not because it was perfect, but because it was human. People didn't just comment, they confessed. Hundreds of women shared their stories, of being controlled, of being manipulated by family, of walking away from people they loved, because fear had been louder than love. One comment read, I didn't just read Emily's letter, I lived it. And another, I wish someone had told me I wasn't the villain in my own love story. Step 2. Confront the enemy. Emily requested a meeting, not in private, in public. She chose a charity gala, where the Langs and Prestons were both scheduled to appear. The media was there, and Emily made sure of it. Veronica arrived first, flashing her signature smile, waving politely, until she saw Emily standing near the entrance, microphone in hand. "Mother," Emily said clearly, "do you mind if I ask a few questions?" Veronica froze. People turned. Cameras clicked. "What are you doing?" Veronica whispered. "I'm reclaiming my voice." Daniel stepped up beside her. "You said you wanted dignity. Here's your chance to earn it." Emily looked straight at her. "You forged my name on legal documents. You contacted someone to sabotage my wedding. You leaked videos. You planted false emails. And you hurt people who never deserved it. Why?" Veronica's smile cracked. "I did it to protect you." "No," Emily said, her voice firm. "You did it to control me." Gasps rippled across the ballroom, but Emily wasn't done. "You were so afraid I would become less than you imagined, that you made sure I wouldn't become more." Veronica tried to walk away, but Eleanor Preston, Daniel's grandmother, blocked her path. "You forgot one thing, dear," Eleanor said softly. "This generation doesn't stay silent." And in that moment, Veronica Lang realized she had lost control. Back home, Daniel sat beside Emily on the floor. Everything was quiet now. The noise had faded. The headlines were shifting. People were forgetting or forgiving. But something still hung between them. Emily looked at him. "I don't know if we can go back." Daniel nodded. "I'm not asking you to. I just want us to start over." He handed her a small notebook. She flipped it open. Inside were sketches, designs, of a store, a gallery, a studio. "I believe in your work," he said, "and if we can't rebuild us yet, maybe we can build something else." Emily touched the page, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Maybe forgiveness wasn't a door you walked through. Maybe it was something you built, brick by brick, together, even after the war of words was over. The test of time. Sometimes the quiet hurts more than the storm. After the chaos had passed, the cameras stopped flashing, the headlines turned to fresher scandals, and even the online world moved on. What remained was silence, and the silence was heavy. Emily moved into a modest apartment above a local artisan bookstore. It wasn't luxurious, but it was hers. A small balcony faced the sun every morning. She placed a plant on it, watered it daily, and named it Hope. Her schedule shifted dramatically. No more extravagant fittings, no more photo shoots, no more wedding plans. Now it was just sketching, studying, surviving. And strangely enough, healing. She picked up freelance design work, small projects at first. A cafe asked for a new menu layout. A friend commissioned her to redesign her living room. Nothing flashy, but it was honest work. And for the first time, she was being hired not as Veronica Lang's daughter, not as the ex-fiancée of Daniel Preston, but simply as Emily. Meanwhile, Daniel had disappeared from the spotlight entirely. The Preston family business underwent quiet restructuring. Brandon Preston stepped back, publicly citing health reasons, though industry insiders whispered about board pressure after the scandal. Daniel's promotion was quietly reinstated, but he turned it down. Instead, he took a job teaching part-time coding at a youth center in the city's west side, from billion-dollar meetings to helping teenagers debug HTML. It was a leap most didn't understand. But for Daniel, it wasn't about rebuilding his image. It was about rebuilding himself. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, he stood in front of a classroom filled with bright, tired, hopeful faces. Kids who didn't care who he had once been, only who he was now. 3 months passed, then 4. Neither Emily nor Daniel contacted each other. Not a single message, not a missed call, not even a view on each other's Instagram stories. Their silence wasn't about anger, it was about space. But that didn't mean they forgot. In early spring, a message arrived in Emily's inbox, from Eleanor Preston. "Dear Emily, the flowers on your balcony remind me of the violets I once planted after my first heartbreak. Would you join me for tea next Sunday? I think there are still things we should talk about. With love, Eleanor." Emily stared at the message for a long time, then she replied, "I'll bring lemon cake. I remember it's your favorite." The meeting was warm, quiet, almost sacred. Eleanor poured the tea with steady hands, her age never robbing her of grace. They spoke of gardening, of design, of Daniel. "He's different now," Eleanor said softly. "Not because of you, and not because of what happened, but because he finally let go of the life others built for him." Emily nodded. "I'm different too. I'm still learning how to let go of shame." The old woman looked at her kindly. "You know, it's not weakness to love someone who's made mistakes, or to admit that you did too." Emily looked down at her cup. "I still love him," she whispered. Eleanor smiled. "Then maybe it's time to stop whispering." That night, Emily stood on her balcony. The plant named Hope had bloomed, tiny yellow petals reaching for the sky. Without overthinking it, she took a picture and posted it. Caption: "Some things take time, but they bloom when they're ready." And within 10 minutes, 1 like from Daniel Preston. A week later, they met again, not at a restaurant, not at a party, at the youth center where Daniel taught. Emily had signed up to volunteer. No cameras, no press, no expectations, just 2 people who had once been in love, standing beside each other again. He handed her a marker. "Help me draw wireframes on the whiteboard?" She grinned. "Only if you let me fix your header spacing." The kids were oblivious to the past tension. To them, Emily was just the stylish new mentor who brought cookies. And Daniel? He was the guy who knew how to explain complicated code using metaphors about ramen noodles and video games. In the weeks that followed, Emily and Daniel began building something new. Not a relationship, not yet. A project, a non-profit initiative. They called it Second Draft. The idea was simple: offer design and tech mentorship to underprivileged teens who had dreams but lacked access. Emily taught visual storytelling. Daniel handled the digital side. Together, they gave kids what they themselves never had growing up: guidance without expectation. The name Second Draft wasn't just for the kids, it was for them too. A reminder that life doesn't end with the first mistake. You revise, you edit, you improve. Then came the test neither of them expected: a grant proposal. To scale Second Draft citywide, they needed funding. It meant pitching to big donors, writing proposals, presenting their story. Daniel was hesitant. He still had scars from the last time his life went public. Emily looked at him and said, "We're not doing this for attention. We're doing it for the kids." He nodded. And so began the most meaningful pitch of their lives. They rehearsed for days, practiced every answer. But when the day came, nothing went according to plan. The projector failed. Half the attendees were late. A major donor fell asleep mid-speech. Daniel started to panic, but Emily reached out and held his hand under the table, and somehow that was enough. They spoke not like entrepreneurs, but like survivors. Of public scrutiny, family pressure, broken dreams, and how all of it had brought them to this very moment. Second Draft, Emily concluded, isn't about charity. It's about dignity, about giving people the right to rewrite their story. When the presentation ended, the room was quiet. Then, applause. And a single donor stood up, an elderly woman, glasses hanging low on her nose. "I was once a foster child," she said softly. "No one gave me a second draft, but I want to make sure these kids get one." She signed a check on the spot, a 6-figure grant, enough to keep the project alive for 2 more years. Emily looked at Daniel, he looked at her, and in that moment, it was no longer about tests, no more disguises, no more proving anything. They were just ready. That night, they walked home in the rain. Daniel stopped under a street lamp. "Do you ever think about that day?" he asked. "When I showed up to the wedding in that old car?" Emily laughed softly. "You mean the day you showed up as your real self?" He smiled. "I guess I thought I had to test you." Emily stopped walking. "And I failed." Daniel shook his head. "No, I failed. I should have trusted that love grows in honesty, not performance." She looked up at him. "You know what I learned since then?" "What?" "That love is a daily choice, not a ceremony." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. Inside was a sketch of a little storefront, her future design studio, with her name above it, and below, in his handwriting, "Ready when you are." She teared up. Not because it was grand, but because it was real. And finally, unconditional. The crossroads. Life rarely asks for your permission before throwing you a choice that splits your soul in two. After the grant was secured, second draft began expanding at a speed that neither Emily nor Daniel had anticipated. Their pilot classes had grown into full programs. 6 schools signed on to integrate the mentorship into their curriculum. Media outlets began picking up their story, this time not for drama, but for hope. But with success came pressure, and with pressure came sacrifice. Emily was now managing a team of 5 junior designers, overseeing curriculum and consulting on branding for 3 separate community branches. She barely had time to eat, let alone sketch just for herself. Daniel, meanwhile, had been offered a prestigious fellowship in Zurich, a year-long funded program in educational tech innovation. It was his dream, and his nightmare. He hadn't told Emily yet. One evening, they sat on the roof of the community center, their usual after-hours ritual. Pizza, a thermos of hot tea, and a blanket shared between them. Daniel was quieter than usual. Emily noticed. She didn't say anything at first. Then finally, "Talk to me." He hesitated, then handed her the letter from the Zurich Institute. Emily read in silence. At the end, she looked up with a soft smile. "That's incredible." He nodded. But it's 11 months, across an ocean." She took a deep breath, then handed the letter back. "I'm proud of you. You deserve this." "But what about us?" Daniel asked. "I don't know," Emily said honestly. "But I know this. I'd rather let you go than be the reason you stay and regret it." Her voice didn't waver, but her hands tightened around the thermos. Daniel looked away, the wind tugging gently at his hair. "You always surprise me," he said. She smiled. "I'm still learning not to run from hard things." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She walked around her apartment looking at the sketches pinned to her walls. The ones from before, the ones from after. Then her eyes stopped at one, a rough charcoal draft she had made months ago, a concept for a space that didn't exist yet. She titled it, "Between Dreams." It was a blend of a studio, a classroom, and a garden. She had drawn it during one of the loneliest weeks of her life, but looking at it now, it didn't feel lonely. It felt possible. The next morning, she brought the sketch to Daniel. "I want to build this," she said. "Not just for me. For us, for the kids, for the people who feel stuck between what they want and what the world allows." He studied the paper for a long time. "I love it," he said. "Then go to Zurich," she replied. "Come with me." She shook her head. "Not this time. I need to build this here, from the ground up." "But what if—" "There's no if. If we're real, we'll find our way back." Weeks passed. Daniel left for Zurich, Emily stayed, and the quiet returned. But this time, it didn't hurt, because now silence was space to grow. She moved the second draft headquarters into a larger space, a donated warehouse with exposed brick, large windows, and plenty of room for dreams. She turned one corner into a design lab, another into a reading nook, and in the center, a long communal table made from reclaimed wood, a place where no one sat above anyone else, a place for equals. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, Daniel dove into his work. The curriculum he was building focused on empathy-based AI and inclusive digital learning models. His research caught the attention of global educators. Still, every Saturday at 9 p.m. his time, 3 p.m. hers, they called, no matter what. Sometimes the calls were short, sometimes long, sometimes they said nothing important at all, but each one said, "I'm still here." 6 months in, Emily received an invitation, the Global Youth Impact Summit. They wanted Second Draft to present its story, on stage, to a room filled with changemakers, investors, and visionaries. Emily was stunned. This was real. The keynote was in Zurich, and she knew what it meant. The day she landed, snow covered the rooftops like a quiet blessing. She hadn't seen Daniel in 6 months. They met in the hotel lobby. He didn't speak. He just held her. And in that moment, there were no past mistakes, only the future, together. Her speech the next day was electric. She spoke of failure, of beginnings, of people who had been discarded, and how they wrote themselves back into the story. Second Draft isn't just for our students, Emily said. It was for me. I thought I needed a perfect partner to build a perfect life. But what I needed was to become whole on my own. And only then could I meet someone who saw me, not as a savior or a status symbol, but simply as Emily, a girl who once ran from the altar and found herself instead. The audience rose. Daniel stood in the back, tears in his eyes. That night, in the quiet of their Zurich apartment, Daniel brought out a small velvet box. Not flashy, not a family heirloom, just a ring made of brushed silver, simple, real. "I'm not asking you for a wedding," he said. "I'm asking you for a life, messy, beautiful, honest. Are you in?" Emily looked at him, at the man who once tested her by hiding who he was, at the man who now stood here with nothing hidden. "Yes," she said, without hesitation. "Let's write our second draft." Full circle. There are moments in life when time seems to pause, not because of shock or pain, but because the heart finally understands. For Emily and Daniel, that moment came not during a grand wedding nor a perfect proposal. It came one rainy Thursday afternoon, months after Zurich, back in the city where it all began. They had just finished painting the final wall of the new second draft community hub, now complete with its own cafe, design studio, childcare corner, and recording booth for the youth podcast series. Daniel looked at the smudge of green paint on Emily's cheek, and Emily glanced at the tear in Daniel's hoodie from an overambitious shelf installation. No fanfare, no spotlight, just two tired, happy people. And in that unremarkable moment, everything was right. The community had transformed too. Alina, the teenager who once came to the mentorship program in silence, was now leading design workshops for younger kids, and had just been accepted into a top art school with a full scholarship. Mr. Hahn, the gruff retired carpenter, donated his time building custom furniture for the hub, saying, "I finally found a reason to leave the house." And even Melanie, Emily's once estranged cousin, showed up one morning with a tray of her famous peach scones, a nervous smile on her face. "I figured we could try again?" Emily nodded, handing her an apron. "You're already late for your shift, cousin." But not every story had a happy ending. Emily's father passed away quietly in his sleep just a few weeks after she returned from Zurich. The man who once disapproved of her every choice, who had sat stone-faced when she left her wedding, held her hand in the hospital bed and whispered, "You made me proud, kiddo." That was the last thing he said, and it was more than enough. One sunny morning as spring melted winter from the sidewalks, the community hub hosted its first annual Second Chances Fair. Booths lined the block. Career coaching for ex-convicts, free therapy sessions, fashion repurposing stations run by local students, a music stage featuring youth performers. Emily stood in the center, watching a mother cry as her son received his first job offer. Nearby, Daniel was helping a teen configure her very first coding project on an old laptop they refurbished. This wasn't just a program anymore. It was a movement, and at the heart of it, not wealth, not prestige, but people. Messy, brave, ordinary people. Trying again. That evening, after the event ended and the last folding chair was packed, Emily and Daniel sat on the rooftop again, just like before. Only this time, there was no tension, no secrets, just peace. Emily took out a small envelope and handed it to him. Inside was a photo of the original sketch she had drawn, the design concept for Between Dreams. Below it was a printed headline from a recent online feature, "From Runaway Bride to Community Visionary, the woman who turned a fall into flight." Daniel read the subheading and smiled. She didn't marry a rich man. She married a real one, and together they built something richer than gold. He looked at her. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" Emily shook her head. "I thought I had to be perfect, that love had to look a certain way, wear a suit, drive a luxury car. But now I know, love is a pair of calloused hands holding yours after you've scrubbed paint off a bathroom floor." Daniel laughed. "So, what now?" She looked up at the stars. "Now, we just keep showing up, keep choosing, keep building." He took her hand. They didn't need rings or vows, because sometimes love isn't a ceremony. It's a commitment, lived quietly, daily. And in that quiet, they found everything they had ever been searching for. Back inside the community center, the kids had painted a mural, a giant tree, branches spreading wide, leaves made of handprints. At the base, written in messy cursive with every color imaginable, Every story deserves a second draft, and so theirs continued, not perfectly, but beautifully. Life won't always go as planned. The people you trust might fail you. The path you thought was yours may vanish in a single step. But if you stay open to truth, to growth, to love that doesn't come in perfect packaging, you just might find your second draft is better than the first. Have you ever taken a second chance on someone or on yourself? Share your story below. Someone out there might be waiting for the courage to rewrite theirs.